How's everybody's summer going? How's everybody doing? My lovely sniffling. Is that an echo I hear? No, it's actually an extra tab on my browser. So pardon us for that. So I am back here and I have a wonderful guest. And many of you may know him. But for those who do not know him, his name is Adam Green. Some of you out there may be a fan of his music or his time as part of the Moldy Peaches. He is also an extraordinary filmmaker, in my humble opinion. I have watched a couple of his films. And imagine Dostoevsky through the lens of Pee-wee's Playhouse. And I love it for that. And speaking of Pee-wee's Playhouse, actually, one of his actresses is Natasha Lyonne, who just happened to be, I think her name was Cher, on Pee-wee's Playhouse. So goes full circle. So I'm excited to have a conversation with him. We're going to be talking about his recent, I'm going to actually show it here. And I think it's quite lovely. He offered me a printed copy of this, but this is available for download via PDF for printout. It's Adam Green's Fragrance Adventure. We're going to be chatting about that. Wonderfully illustrated as well. So I'm excited for this. So we're going to take a look at the chat and see who has arrived before we bring Adam in. And we have Absurd Nose. And Will, welcome both of you. A Paradigm Sniff, good friend of mine as well. Nick S. Philippe, who would like to mention that his scent of the day is Abbé Rouge Parfum. And Pat Lester, same to you as well, my friend. Yes, the summer break means limited content. And speaking of content, I am a slave to the algorithm. So you must hit the thumbs up because it helps people see this content as they're doing searches or they get recommendations. So don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Let's try to aim for 40 likes by the end of the stream. That is a modest request. And why don't we get things started? We are at 1:04 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and let's bring on our guest, Adam Green. Hello, my friend.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going okay. How are you?
Good. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for accepting my invitation. I was just giddy about your fragrance adventure, and I've known about your music. I remember picking up the Moldy Peaches record years ago. So I've known of you, and I wasn't aware until recently, until we followed each other on Instagram, that you were a fume head, a frag head.
Right.
Whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's exciting.
I mean, people didn't know that about me. I mean, obviously, people like my friends knew. But yeah, I've been for, I guess, almost, I want to say, I was going to say almost 10 years, maybe almost 8 years, something like that, around 2016. I started to amass a huge collection of fragrances, and it started on tour. My guitar player and sometimes tour manager and sometimes actor who's in my movies, John Wiley, who plays the Farmer Dave character in my Aladdin movie and also in the Wrong Ferarri. He's an amateur perfumer, and he when we went on tour, he basically just started to talk about fragrance pretty much the first day of tour, and by the end of the tour, we were like stopping at malls to collect like little bottles of essential oil and like checking out obscure fragrances, and that's kind of how I got started, was through John's enthusiasm for scent and the way that he would describe it.
So did you notice early on that you had a fascination with scent prior to your entering the world of fragrance itself? Do you have like childhood memories that you recall?
Yeah, I mean, not especially. I think I think I have those kind of like printed primal memories, like the smell of the pool at summer camp, or like the way that like the hallway at my grandparents' house smelled, or or things like that. Whatever, like the smell of like a waiter who was wearing cologne at a restaurant, like stuff like that. But I think no, I think I wasn't that aware of it. It was actually like, I think, as you were saying before, I've done a lot of different kinds of artwork, sculpture, movies, sculptural movies where I built the sets out of paper mache. So like, painting, drawing, music, writing, poetry, all kinds of things. But the like odor space or whatever, like scent world, was something I hadn't really thought about until this kind of project came along, and it filled up my brain, just collecting scents and researching about the history of them, which I found really interesting. So we can talk about some of the research that I did, during my years as a fragrance collector.
Yeah, I'd love that.
And also some of the things that influenced it. But so I think that the big thing, when we want to talk about the fragrance adventure, which, by the way, everyone, you can just get this for free. This is a free thing. You just get it right now. It's a PDF, and if you go to my website, my website is called adamgreen.info, and you can just download it for free. It's like there's a Dropbox and there's a Hightail link, and then you can print it out or read it on your tablet or whatever.
And it's right in the description of the live stream too, folks. Like I put the link to the direct download of the PDF if you're interested. It's right in the description. And
this particular book, it's done in the form of a play about fragrance, and it is illustrated. There, it is illustrated by me and my two friends, Toby Goodshank and Tom Bain, and so it's sort of an illustrated play, and it will guide you through your own fragrance adventure. I mean, the idea of the book is for you to have your own fragrance adventure, honestly, but this is sort of like a good guide that talks about the history and the different types of scent. And I was going to say the thing about the fragrance adventure that people need to know first is that the book centers around a special fragrance that David Bowie apparently wore. That was the start of this book. Was that I'm friends with the Strokes, are like my peers in the 2001 rock scene, and we toured together at the beginning of our musical careers. And one time, Albert Hammond, who's the guitarist of the Strokes, told me that David Bowie came into the Strokes dressing room and that he smelled so great that like everyone was mesmerized, and it was like this incredibly, just vivid experience how Bowie smelled. He said he's never smelled anyone that smelled that good, which, I just filed in the back of my brain. I mean, I didn't think about that for many more years, until when Bowie died in 2016. All of a sudden, there were a lot of interviews, and some of the interviews would mention his smell. Like, for example, an interview with Will Butler from the Arcade Fire. Mm-hmm. Like he basically he basically says, I guess because they were collaborated with him, on some music, and he said like Bowie's smell was like nothing you've ever smelled before, and he actually gives a description which is pretty vivid, to paraphrase it, and it's in the book, but it's something like it smells like like a forest that's had a fire, but the fire has like, was a while ago, and now there's like new dew coming up, and there's like marshmallows and sweetness, but there's something like sad and it's smoky, and he paints a very vivid picture of the scent. And I did, of course, wonder when I read that if that was the same smell that the Strokes had smelled on Bowie. But then the more and more I looked into it, I found actually a message board by the perfume reviewer, like famous perfume critic Katie Puckrick, who's like a legendary perfume critic and also like a British TV icon. I've never spoken to her, but is a character in this book because her blog actually has this incredible message board that's a whole like huge clump of it is dedicated to trying to find out the smell that Bowie wore. And there was a ton of leads on it. For example, Marianne Hobbs of the BBC or of BBC Radio had said Bowie wore like L'Eau d'Essai. Yeah, and like someone else said, oh, he wore Angel Man, and people were speculating like crazy. And on his own website, I found this weird interview with him on his like I don't even know if his website is up anymore, but he had like a David Bowie website or something, and it said he wore Minatore by Paloma Picasso.
I have that right here.
So that's funny that was his thing. He also said he wore anything by Guerlain, which is like pretty vague, but that could be a lot of different things. There was a testimony by who was it? Anyways, someone said that he wore Chanel. They said that basically he wore a fragrance by Chanel that was it was Brett Anderson from Suede said he wore fragrances by Chanel, but not, he called it a poor man's fragrance from Chanel. It was a rich person's, which made me think, of course, of the exclusive line.
Right.
So he sort of alluded to the fact that David Bowie wore like a Chanel exclusive. And then more and more, it started to feel like the scent was vetiver based, by the descriptions that were started to come out about his scent. Then it went in all different directions. Oh, then Owen Pallett, who's a collaborator of the of Arcade Fire, he said that he had dinner with Bowie in the East Village and he wore Silver Mountain Water by Creed.
Yeah.
Now Silver Mountain Water by Creed is very different than all these other scents that we're talking about.
That's true. It's a very like very sheer tea-like scent, which is a contrast to the much more resinous and ambery and richer kind of sense that okay. So anyway, so this kind of culminated in this tour that I had where we started to look for the scent that Bowie wore. We started to procure samples of things that we heard that he wore, and actually this is it's sort of, the book is partially autobiographical here. It's set on a tour where we're going around trying to find the scent that Bowie wore. When I stepped into the car, I had just gotten into collecting fragrances, and so I was exposed to like a best of list, by Luca Turin, who ended up being really like a really important reference for my book. I was going to say though, he recommended a fragrance called Pour Monsieur by Chanel. And I came into the van the first day of tour wearing Pour Monsieur, which I had bought at the duty-free airport. And my bass player was like, "What is that?" He was like that. He's like, "You smell like my uncle." He's like, and I was like, "No, this is one of the." I was like, the top most sophisticated fragrance reviewer in the world says this is like one of the classiest scents of all time, and he was like, "Sure, whatever, whatever you say."
he was like, "You smell creepy," like, which is funny because it is a great scent, but so that was how it started. But then, so check this out, and this is I don't know, like if you believe in destiny or whatever, this is what happened next. Is I said, "Do you not like when people wear cologne?" And he goes, no, I can deal with like some people wearing cologne that wear it well. And I was like who are you thinking of? And he goes, well, once I sat next to David Bowie at an award show, and he smelled amazing. He goes, he smelled like the space flower. That's what's his description, a space flower.
Love that. Yeah.
So then, you kind of start thinking about Comme des Garçons scents and
right.
What could the space flower be, because it doesn't sound like anything we've already touched on. And then, I think in my own journey then, as someone that collects scents, I started to sometimes feel like I had come upon a scent that it could be. Sometimes I would feel like this could be it, and we'll talk about that. But I was going to say that. So what's interesting about the Bowie thing is, first off, that he wore, I guess, so many different types of scents that there's actually a way to talk about the full amount, like the whole like space of scent in just following all the leads of what he wore, because he wore green scents and he wore woody scents and he wore aquatic scents and gourmands. He wore everything. So you can actually learn all about all of scent from just learning about what David Bowie supposedly wore. And by the way, and Iman says that he wore Gray Vetiver from Tom Ford, which is pretty random. So I don't know. Anyways, you could say that she might know. And apparently she wore Fracas from Robert P.
Oh, yes, Fracas.
So anyways, so we got that. Last thing I was going to say is, I don't even know what I'm saying. What you talk. I was just talking on forever. What are you saying? No,
I'm enjoying every moment of it. So, and I think that the audience, those who are tuned in, are as well. Philippe suggests maybe he layered.
Oh yeah, I definitely think he layered. I'm sure of it. Oh, I was going to say, while we're talking about the leads, there's a picture of him in his dressing room in the Ziggy Stardust period. And this is from the Katie Puckrick message board. And he has a checker, like houndstooth Dior bottle,
Right.
Miss
The earlier
Diorella.
I have a later version of it. This is probably like
really I think that's a great, their current version is quite good.
This is like a 90s version of it, which is really good too. But
I really like it.
The one bottle that I have that does have that cool houndstooth is the Eau Flèche, which is brilliant as well, because that was Edmund Rudnitska in his exploration of that main accord, which would be revisited with like Eau Sauvage and then Diorella, etc. But Miss Dior.
Actually, I feel like and this is like a real.
I love those bottles too.
And just to clarify for listeners that want to check out the original Miss Dior now, they market it as it's called Miss Dior Original.
Yeah. It's in a similar bottle to this, with the text saying Original. Yeah. I think it's still in a similar bottle to this. This one I dated, because I am that kind of geek. I did some research, and I think this one was produced in 1994, which is pretty good.
It seems like they've kept it pretty good. So I was going to say, so one thing that's kind of interesting about this is we're talking about a scent that is not only like a really interesting scent, but also a scent that people love. People love this scent. That's it's kind of interesting about it, And that's actually one of the funny things about when you check out the different leads that you got, you kind of had to like simultaneously consider, do I think this is cool? And also, do I think this is impressive enough for people to remember this scent forever? So it's an interesting scent that kind of is like a compliment monster fragrance that's also so interesting that everyone, it's a weird scent. And the truth is it's not just one scent.
Right.
But some of them were quite good that everyone's remembering them. But I was going to say though that exactly. Someone just wrote he layered Florist Elite with Paloma Picasso.
Yeah, we'll show that again.
That is another lead that we have.
That's not it. Here we go. Here we have it.
So that is actually another lead that comes up, is that the people from the florist store. Florist is a barbershop kind. It's a store on. It's not a barbershop. It's a store on. It's a fragrance shop on London, in Jermyn Street, which is like the Taylor kind of district, and it's they have these great scents, and one of the owners of Florist says that Bowie wore Elite, which you've got right there, Elite
with this beautiful green color, which I think is partially attributed to the balsam fir absolute that they use, but part of it is probably a safe sort of a coloring as well. I just wanted to say hello to Sweet Milk. I'm assuming that's you. Your new handle, sweet, but not too sweet. Scent of the day, Oud 71 from Le Labo. But this is the first florist that I was introduced to, and
I mean, if you want to, if we want to digress and smell some stuff, we could talk about the Runitska thing as well. I wanted to touch on that, but
oh, for sure.
Yeah, like let's smell elite, just because this is a scent that for sure it seems like Bowie at least wore at one time.
It's it's really well done for its genre, because I think this was originally released from Florist maybe 1981.
Yeah, it's an early 80s, and
you can discern that it is delineated, or sort of a descendant of maybe Paco Rabanne, but there is this distinguished quality to it.
I think it has something similar to Equipage by Hermes.
You're absolutely right, especially as it dries down a little bit more because of that carnation.
And it's actually very dry in that same way. And I feel like it kind of evokes this, like, I kind of feel like this. I was sort of in the book talking about like a gentleman's club or something, in these sort of in like that sort of Pall Mall area of London. They have these like kind of like, I don't know, where like Congress people hang out or whatever you call it. And they have these sort of like leather couches and smoking rooms. It actually smells a little bit like it has the residue of like someone had like smoked a few days ago in it.
Yeah. But it's mingling with other things so that it isn't merely a stale smoke, but it's being exalted or improved by whatever other elements are in that space.
Yeah. So it's like it is an aromatic fougere. It's like, I don't know what it is. It's sort of like it's a barbershop scent, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely quintessential as a barbershop scent.
It smells like really fancy. I mean, it smells like King Charles wears it or something.
Right.
I don't know. But again, like as I was saying in the book, that's what's funny is when you think about Bowie wearing this, which is a really classy scent, but you're kind of think, is someone really going to remember that this scent was on Bowie, like tell other people all about it? Like, I don't feel like this is not that kind of a scent. It's a clean scent. I mean, I don't think that, the guy from Arcade Fire is like telling everyone about this.
Yeah.
But there's another picture I saw of Bowie standing in his dressing room with a Brooks Brothers bottle, and I kind of wondered if that wasn't a phase of him, almost like when he went kind of like after he went really like when he came back from Berlin and he cleaned up a little bit, you know what I mean, like kind of
right.
I feel like maybe then like he was sort of barbershopping, kind of like just did like his back hair, and he had like a nice like gentleman scent, like I could see that. That's like, I mean, this is 1981. I could feel like in 1981 I could see that Bowie did maybe smell like this. And actually, if anything, the testimony, a lot of what we're getting is Bowie as an older person. This really flamboyant Bowie smell is actually him as a mature man.
And it does evoke that sort of maturity. There's a little bit of that Beau Brummel, but also a distinguished gentleman.
Yeah, and also there's a statue of Beau Brummel right outside of the florist's shop.
Yeah,
there's a statue of him right in the corner.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, this guy's so funny, Beau Brummel. Apparently people used to watch him get changed in the morning. That was like, this guy was such a dandy that there was like a crowd of people that would watch him get changed, like because they just were curious like how he would dress himself and what he'd wear. And I think he was this friend or so of Lord Byron, Beau Brummel.
I believe you're right. It is a lovely one, though. I'm glad that I have this as part of my.
It's a great song. It might be better than Equipage. I mean, for me. I mean, I don't.
Ooh, hot take.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, like. I mean, I feel like with the opening of Equipage is a little like it's a little bit. I don't know, like. It's actually a little bit. It's like it could be a little gnarly for a second. I feel like it kind of settles into itself, but there's the thing about Equipage actually almost I don't know, it has this sort of abstract, almost like frankincensiness to it. It's not listed as a note, but it feels like it's more churchy than this.
I wouldn't doubt that Guy Robert put molybdenum resin into the formula, even though it's not listed.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised how often molybdenum, the frankincense resin, ends up showing up in formulas, or people figure out in the GCMS that it's there, even when incense is in the note. So I don't doubt it at all.
Yeah.
And I actually am drawn to fustiness. So that fustiness in the beginning, just that stuffy fustiness I love about it.
I know you mean that. That's the things that, a lot of these scents you really do particularly wear to like feel like you went back in like the strip of time to like a different, which is actually interesting. There's actually an exhibit that's up right now at the Metropolitan Museum. It's called I'm really gonna butcher. I don't remember the title of it. But it's basically like this lady has like she's basically taken the molecules of like from the opened boxes of their costume archive, and she's taken the actual molecules and she's amplified them, like magnified them into little beakers, so you can smell like kind of little smells that are from the garments that have been sealed for like who knows 100 years or something. Oh, wow. And what's interesting about smelling them is that they actually smell quite futuristic. Like a lot of these musks and things that people use in modern fragrances have been sort of like milling around in the air forever, I guess. And I feel like they're just because like a company has seized upon a musk and is now like using it, or a scent and is now using it in a modern perfume, doesn't mean that smell didn't occur in the old times in other situations and like was part of clothing. Anyways, it just kind of made me realize that the past smelled quite futuristic, that it always has. It's like dream time, like like now is now, and like I mean, like it's always been now, and it always has been the future.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating to think of.
Yeah.
And also what's really remarkable about scent chemistry.
The lady's name is Sissel. Sissel is the
Sissel. Oh, the art.
Who is the person that has made this exhibit at the Met.
Okay.
He was a really brilliant sort of artist, chemist. I don't know. I got the pleasure of was given a tour of it by her, and so she's isolated these compounds from. It's really her idea, and she's made this this like weird smell exhibit at the Met that everyone should go see if you want to get your mind blown.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I'd love to check that out. Yeah, in scent chemistry too, it's remarkable how you may find certain things in nature that even when you break it down chemically, it isn't entirely similar, or it may not be similar at all to something that had to been reproduced in a lab. So I don't doubt it at all that there have been some things that were in the ether, either, old materials that were once used in the production of garments and apparel, and other types of industrial materials that just would embed into fabric, would have similarities olfactorily to things that ended up being subsequently developed by, perfume chemists and would be used in perfume.
Like I mean, some of the stuff smelled like weird, silky amberwood kind of things, like weird. Like I smelled one particular part of a dress that smelled quite like Uranus, and Sissel, her explanation was like, well, this petticoat kind of dress like was hard to pull up. Like this lady probably peed herself a little bit in this.
And it's interesting to think that maybe during that time in culture where some incidental urine might have been released on clothes, that it added to the mystique of the way that a woman or a man smelled.
Right.
And in turn influenced early perfume as a result, and it carried on up to today.
Yeah, that's an interesting. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a cool way to look at it.
Yeah.
I think one thing that is a prevalent theme in the book is like kind of looking at fragrances trends by decade, and sort of saying like, why did people want to smell this way in the 90s, or for example in the 70s, like why are people like unwilling to smell this way now? Why, for example, like a fragrance like Koros or something that has this kind of strong urine note, like why will people not feel comfortable to wear it anymore when people used to wear it to show you know, like something about, you know, whatever, like their, I don't know, like athletic prowess or
Show
something.
their animal, you know, their animal magic, their, you know, their the more erogenous aspect of a human being that maybe should be left you know, closed up and put away. And I don't forgive me if you actually do discuss this in your adventure, but it is theorized that some of those more animalic and erotic smelling kind of scents came out of vogue because of the AIDS epidemic.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We talk about this in
You
the
did. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. This idea like that, and apparently this is it's like a half-heard anecdote that was apparently at one point said by Christopher Chang to VJ, who works at the Lucky Scent store in Manhattan.
Right.
But it was just relayed to me that basically like the idea that, you know, that CK1 and like clean musks of the 90s became a trend because the AIDS epidemic, and I guess like was considered like a kind of like, you know, I guess like the wild you know, decadent 70s, you know, was associated with like, became associated eventually with the, you know, like with the AIDS epidemic, and that people wanted to express like being clean and like angelic, and so these sort of like incredibly pure clean fragrances became the trend. You know, it's almost this, like that CK1 is almost like the smell of like, I don't have AIDS.
Right.
You know,
And it didn't help, you know, that it was compounded by the popularity of Kouros and Antaeus and Dior Joule and a number of others in the early 80s amongst gay men. They were very popular. I mean, you would walk into the Saint in New York and it would just be this. I can only imagine what it was like. I was 2 or 3 years old at the time. But it would just be filling the club. And you can imagine how that would add to the sexual energy with the poppers and whatever other debauchery is going on. And I think that it definitely was reactionary. And you probably see that in other forms of, you know, products for consumption or for vanity, that there was a shift away from that sexualization for a while. So I thought that was I was really fascinated with that whole idea. I don't doubt it at all.
Yeah. It's a cool explanation. I mean, it's fun, even if it's not true, it's fun to try to explain these ourselves symbolically to understand the world on like personal terms, you know? And as far as like, oh, you know, and I think even in what Luca Turin, you know, who we mentioned before, the perfume critic, wrote about Antaeus, that he mentions that what you said, and he mentions that it has this strong association with like basically like the gay clubs or like the gay club scene, and in a way like the bottle of it even kind of has this kind of leather daddy looking, you know, vibe, you know, like I don't know, it's interesting to think of it that way. It also smells kind of like very minerally and of the earth,
right?
Which I think is what the name is referencing.
I think you're right.
References like a giant that has to be bound to the earth.
I'm having a lapse, but I think you're right.
Hercules like defeated Antaeus. This is like, could be fake news, but I think Hercules had to defeat the giant Antaeus by lifting him off the earth to strangle him, because he was like, when he was bound to the earth, he was invincible.
And then of course Kouros, a representation of the body, you know, the monolithic body. Yeah. And you think, you know, in gay sexuality, the body has long been considered monolithic and sort of the ideal, the Adonis, you know, and to evoke, you know, and to embody that with what you're wearing as a perfume.
We have a great statue in New York, you know, actually at the Met. There's a great Kouros, and you know, he's kind of thin-hipped, you know. He's actually he's almost like a bit more like in this other Michelangelo David kind of mold, you know, sort of like a young man, you know.
Right.
But it's interesting how that particular fragrance, like, really, like, you know, is supposed to reflect, like, you know, like greasing up your body and like powdering up your body, like, you know, I think it's kind of funny because like there's a scene in my book where, like, you know, they're at a bathhouse and, you know, they're getting introduced to Kouros, but it kind of like came to my, I don't know, it kind of came into my head that, you know, people used to wear, you know, laurel leaves around their head, you know,
Indeed.
you know, to, you know, like myrtle leaves or I guess I kind of thought like that it's interesting to think of these kind of barbershop scents as almost the equivalent of, you know, like what you would do that people have like almost like, you know, that I'm sorry, that in kind of like almost like a satyricon way, like people have always like sort of, there's been like a sort of like luxury culture since like ancient Rome of like people going to bathhouses and like getting doused in a bunch of like weird herbaceous oils and, you know, coming out of there like feeling like really fresh and revived. And it's like, it's kind of funny that like it continues, you know, there's the barbershop fragrance is like an ancient Roman tradition. And we actually have the recipe for Caesar's aromatic oil that he preferred called Helenum. And the recipe was recorded by Pliny the Elder. So yes, you get a sense of what Caesar liked. But, you know, if I read you the ingredients, you know, you might think I was describing like, you know, Musco Real or something. You know, you might think I was describing like a Portuguese barbershop scent.
Yeah, that reminds me of a lot of the vinaigre de toilette that were popular at the time, very herbaceous.
Yeah.
And the base would be a vinegar. In fact, Diptyque, I think, at least up until very recently, had their own vinaigre de toilette. I'm going to do a review of the one that I have, which paid homage to these creations, these concoctions, and the various unguents. And you're right, they'd have things like myrtle and various herbs, hyssop and artemisia and wormwood and all the like in these, and they were supposed to be these tonic agents that were supposed to, you know, invigorate.
You know, like like all kinds of just like kind of old-fashioned resins.
Like LMB resin, exactly. Yeah.
It's really you know, but you know, I think another tangent was because we were talking about the Runitska thing, and I don't remember if there's I guess okay, so the Runitska fragrance we discussed in the book is actually no, he didn't do Miss Dior. It's he did we discussed
did you discuss
we discussed Diorissimo, which he did.
Diorissimo, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm forgetting the name. The name is escaping me, which I'm ashamed of for Miss Dior, but another is it Gavari? I can't even remember.
I think that that there's this particular thing, and there's like a heart of his fragrances that's like he's like one of the most signature perfumers ever. Like it has like the same heart is like in a surgery like transplanted to all these different things. And I feel like one of them is Diarella, and one of them is Rochas Femme.
Rochas Femme.
Usavage. And there's one that Frederick Malle puts out called Perfume from Therese.
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
One more even that has the same heart. Anyways, this guy
Diorama, I think.
Diorama, yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
All Prunol is the link.
Right.
Edmund Runitska and his usage of Prunol to create that effect that you find in all of them. Yeah.
But it has this kind of like there's a little bit of like I want to describe it as like it has this like sweet cheese vibe. Like there's some kind of, you know, and sometimes I feel like it has like a little cumin in it. Like he'll I think in like Eau de Hermes and in Rochas Femme, he adds some cumin to it to give it this sort of, but it's this kind of like weird, very like human, like I don't know. I don't know how to describe it as having this kind of like sweet fruity cheese that's like in the middle of the fragrance. Like
it's kind of like perspiration more than just, it's not really so much dirtiness, but perspiration that's mixed with like your sebum, which is, you know, your skin secretions and a little bit of bacteria. I know that, you know, some people are going to be like, what? That sounds gross, but it's actually like really human. It smells very human. And then, you know, sometimes you'd have them using like costus root and that would add to that. Yeah.
Because costus can be associated with like scalpy kind of smells. Like,
yeah.
You know, like there's I think like a good continuation of that accord that was more modern was done by Christopher Sheldrake in Bois de Féminité.
Yes. Féminité du Bois?
That one actually has, I think, a sort of Renitska heart, but in my memory,
of course, because of the prunal, the
right?
plum note.
Yeah,
Absolutely heavily influenced, almost an homage, but what an incredible scent. And the fact that I call this sort of like masculine with the tint of feminine, or feminine with the shade of masculine. It's sort of like, the woman's animus and the man's anima at the same time. And it was marketed to women, but it's just sort of transcends that. It's just one of the most beautiful scents. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and if anything we can learn from the Bowie thing is that Bowie obviously didn't care about how the fragrances were gendered, of course, and we shouldn't either. I mean, like,
Right.
obviously, most niche fragrances these days aren't gendered at all, but I think they weren't either. I mean, I think, you look at all these Guerlain fragrances, Mitsuku, whatever, it's not until like the 50s and 60s that fragrances start to become like for her, for him, like, I thought that in my book, I say that Caron pour un homme is the first. That's what I heard. The first fragrance marketed specifically to men.
I have two versions here,
but it's kind of nice to see it going back again.
This is this 80s version, and then
wow, I've seen that bottle. Yeah, I have that new one. And this is a really cool fragrance, and it really does go a little Play-Doh-y, and it's hard to unsmell it once you've smelled the Play-Doh. But yeah, it's a really like I don't know, that fragrance is it's very like, it has a very vanilla kind of I mean, it's basically vanilla and lavender is like the heart, like the key components of it.
Lavender, vanilla, maybe a tiny bit of civetone. I think that heliotropin is in it, with that vanilla that kind of lends that kind of Play-Doh-y kind of smell to it.
It has this kind of like the lavender in it. Like, I mean, it's very warm. It's very warm smelling. It does it smells like velvet in a way. It smells like it smells like a birthday cake made out of velvet or something, like I don't really know what I'm talking about, but it smells something like that.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It is like one of my nightcaps. I have like scented nightcaps.
Yeah, that's fun. Actually, one of the first fragrances I ever bought when I was in my 20s was this Comme des Garçons and 2.
Yeah.
It actually comes up in the Bowie thing because on the message board, some people thought that this could be this fragrance fit the description of like a smoky forest that had a fire, and I don't know, but it honestly, like, I don't think that he wore this. I mean, he could have worn it, but I don't.
What do you think is not there that you would expect from a scent that he would have worn?
Well,
or vice versa. What is there that you expect him not to wear?
Like, some of it's coming down to the fact that I actually wore this. I mean, I wore this through my 20s, and like, I can tell you that people don't, run for the, to tell other people about it. I mean, it's not like that kind of a smell. I mean, like, so
it's more the intimacy of it, that it's not like
challenging. I mean, I'm saying it has cumin in it, for example.
Yeah.
It smells very spicy, like a temple. It smells like, I mean, you smell this kind of wood, but it's like this kind of almost like religious smelling thing. Like, it smells like, you're in like, I don't know, like, like in my mind, like I'm in like sort of like Bali or something, and I'm like
a Buddhist temple.
Temple.
Yeah.
And and it has this kind of cumin and vetiver. It actually, I think it's by the same. I'm not sure who. I think Mark Buxton. Maybe.
Mark Buxton. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mark Buxton. Yeah. So, and he actually makes some really interesting fragrances.
Yeah.
So I think this guy, Mark Buxton, is brilliant, but I don't know that Bowie wearing this. I mean, I don't know that if Bowie was wearing this, that like Arcade Fire would be like telling BBC about it. But maybe, I mean, you can't give. I mean, also he's Bowie. He's like super charming and mysterious. I don't know. Like, maybe, I mean, a fragrance might turn different on him. He's got some Bowie pheromones and stuff.
If there's anybody who is tuned in at the moment, if anybody can do a like check, let me know how many likes we have. We're going to try to aim for 40 likes by the end of the stream. The stream will be ending approximately 3 p.m. So if somebody in the chat can let me know, because I don't want to be a rude host and look on my phone or mess things up on my browser here while we're live. So if somebody can let us know, and don't forget to hit the like.
Okay. So then, as we were talking about, fragrances that I crossed paths with that I think maybe could be it, like based on my experience with it, is this Jubilation 25.
Okay.
Yeah. Great smell. It's by Amouage.
Mm-hmm.
This fragrance, I mean, I think it smells a little different than when I first got it, because it was like, I probably got it like whatever near the beginning, like 8 years ago. But but this fragrance is very impressive smelling. Like it smells like, I mean, it reminds a lot of people of like really, like kings and things. It reminds people of yes, there's something kind of royal about it, but it has a sort of like a fruity, almost like I think they say it's blackberry, whatever. I don't know, whatever that is. I don't know what people would call blackberry as an actual. I don't really, but it has some kind of a fruity top, and it has this great, super resinous, like frankincense, and and it has like all these resins, like and woods. And it has this really like mystical. It has this kind of mystical, like a mystical king. And it has this sort of impressive like castle feel. And I noticed when I would go out, people would go crazy for this. Like people would go like, what is that? And like, so I felt for the first time wearing a fragrance when I wore Jubilation 25, like I was having the experience that Bowie was having, must have been having. And actually, I want to mention this because he obviously wore a lot of this scent. Okay. Like he wore a lot of this. I mean, if everyone's talking about how Bowie smelled, like this guy was going nuts. Like he must have sprayed himself like 8 times, before he went out. He was not like, I don't know. He was not shy with the sprayer. But yeah, so anyway, so I had an experience with this Jubilation smell a few times where I think that this could be it. I think that this could be one of the smells that he wore. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, so I think that
I think Bertrand Duchefort he has a mastery of incorporating fruit into his compositions without them being sort of saccharine, shampoo-y, artificial. Really good at it. Really good
for frankincense. You know what I mean? In another fragrance, like listeners to compare it to is he did Avignon for Comme des Garçons, which is like really frankincense smell. Really smells like a Catholic church. But a lot of his scents really have this mystical vibe, and he uses like frankincense and stuff to communicate that in it. I think in this particular fragrance, he had access to a lot of ingredients from Oman that Amouage, sources, and he was able to like really go nuts with these great resins. But I do think that this scent is not only interesting and mysterious enough to be memorable to someone, but also is impressive and seems to be likable to people in a way that it could have been this. Another fragrance that he was rumored to wear that, again, I think, because there is something on the Katie Puckrick, I think, or maybe a Fragrantica. There's actually a Fragrantica thread about this as well. So a lot of people have speculated about what David Bowie wore. So it says minimum 8 sprays always.
Yeah, right. That's good. I can accept 8. It's just the people who are influencers who do 30. That's when my asthma starts to.
I mean, this is for your own enjoyment, but some of these are. By the way, the Jubilation now is, I think, a lot weaker than it used to be.
I would imagine, yeah.
But this, so this one is La Air de Desert Moroccan. This is this is kind of a legendary, famous fragrance for frag heads. It's it is a dried amber scent. Like it has a sort of dry, like it definitely has this sort of like ambery core. But it smells like dust, and it smells like sand, and it has this dry. I don't know, like it smells like. It does smell a little bit like it's getting swept into your face. I
think it's a labdanum. I think he uses like a lot of labdanum, like in the ratio of the amber, because labdanum can have that kind of, it can seem sticky but also dry. But that's another brilliant one.
Yeah, in this one, because there's a comment. It's funny because when you read these comments, some people just they don't say like I think, they just say like. this is what he wore. Like that, you know, and so a few of them, you actually feel like they might know it. Like someone said, he wears Chanel Sycamore by Chanel. Like they just said that. Like
it's very specific too. It's not like, you know,
unapologetically. And then I was thinking like, oh, well, that does kind of corroborate what Brett Anderson was saying. That he wore something by the Chanel exclusives, and the fact that we know that he liked a vetiver scent so much seems like they know something. You know, maybe he did wear Sycamore from Chanel. Anyway, someone said something like, "There's reports of him drenched in this Arab Desert Moroccan," and they said it like they know. So, anyways, fragrance could be it. I think. I mean, because it's mysterious and it's loud. And, you know, and I think if somebody smelled this on Bowie, they'd be like, what was it? It's almost like smelling a fragrance like Jimi Hendrix or something. I feel like you could imagine like Jimi Hendrix smelling like this. It has that like mysterious, like psychedelic.
Did he model for Chanel?
Probably, right? I mean, she was a supermodel, right?
She modeled for different houses, I think, yeah.
You know, but also, another lead I tried to follow was he apparently like Iman would buy fragrances from Adis Venustis, Adis Venustis, which is a store now. It's a New York City perfume store now on. Now they're located in the Lower East Side. But
yeah,
I went there and I asked them, and they didn't want to. They didn't want any part in my research. I think. I don't know. They were like not like they said they couldn't remember what you would buy, but I was curious because I was thinking maybe she bought niche fragrances for him from there. And that would be interesting.
Yeah, not to knock Adis Venustis because I don't want to, you know, spread any bad rumors. But I've heard from even the most seasoned and knowledgeable perfume enthusiasts that they're met with a bit of a cold response when it comes to certain things like that when they go into the store. But
yeah, you know, I mean, but you know, again, all these places are invaluable resources for people who want the fragrance adventure. And I think that's, if anything can take anything away from this video, is that like I was just, you know, an indie rock guy, a singer, like with no knowledge about perfume. And one day I started to like try to find out the fragrance David Bowie wore. I went to like every perfume store in, you know, New York City and London, where my wife's family lives, you know, and just smelled things, smell strips, you know, just walked around the city and smelled different stuff. I mean, you can go into Chanel, you can go into Bergdorf, you can go into Saks Fifth Avenue, Macy's, all these stores, you know, department stores in your town. They have like tons of this stuff. You can smell all these fragrances, and you know, just have your own smell adventure. You know, it's a way to get out of the house. You know, I mean, it's like, don't order them. Just actually go find them. You know, go find little tester bottles, especially old pharmacies that have like discontinued old like fragrances and bottles. It's so cool. You know, it's sometimes it's fun to take an hour walk just to like see if you can smell a specific smell you wanted to smell.
Right.
You know, and that's what the adventure is about. It's more about getting out of the house and like enjoying like, you know, thinking about smell. You know. So Bowie lived apparently on Crosby Street near his later year. You know, so he would have actually gone to like maybe Min, that niche fragrance store that's now closed. I think. He might have lived on like Lafayette. He lived somewhere around there. There's actually a Santa Maria Novella store there. I don't know if it's been there for a while though. So
love Santa Maria Novella.
Yeah, so it's funny to think like Bowie might have like, you know, experienced these particular niche collections of Min or of Adis Venustis or Santa Maria Novella. You know, yeah, like you know, and you know, when he said anything by Guerlain was something that came to my mind because I was thinking about you know, I think, is Minatory a 90s fragrance?
It is. I think it was released in 1993. So if I'm not mistaken.
Is this which is a vintage bottle, Heritage by Guerlain?
Heritage. Yeah.
This fragrance is pretty impressive. You know, I mean, you got to think like it's Bowie. You know, so it's not like about a normal scent. It's about like everything has to be like a scent with a lot of obnoxious like gravitas. Like it's like he didn't. You know what I mean? I think that the smell that people are talking about is a lot for somebody to pull off. You know, and this particular scent is really impressive. It's kind of like I mean, it has that sort of barbershop thing, but it really goes over the top to smell like really like really like luxurious or like kind of glow with its sort of, like king's coffer.
Right. It's kind of plush.
It has, yeah,
Like
it's like,
that patchouli gives it that plushness. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, again, this might smell too cologne-y to be the fragrance that Bowie wore, because, I don't know, maybe he wore something more like niche and, artistic or just sort of more abstract. But this is really deep. Like, it's a really deep, like, smell. It smells like history in a bottle. Like, I mean, guess why it's called that? It smells like a knotted old tree, like with like made of, owl feathers.
Yeah, I love that idea.
I don't know.
Like owl feathers with like furry moths, like
yeah,
living in the branches. And
yeah, and like, and I feel like, this is kind of like, I guess we're trying to capture, with our imaginations of what Bowie could have smelled.
Tripler says, this
person says, reading about Bowie's personality and how he treated people. I can't see him wearing bombastically or offensively strong fragrances.
Yeah.
What's funny is that apparently he wore not even offensive, just really strong scents that were people delighted in. But I don't.
Yeah. Well, I think that, strong doesn't necessarily equate to offensive or bombastic. Yeah. Something can have quite the sillage, because sillage is different from projection too. When you're thinking in terms of the way a fragrance conducts itself on your skin, the projection could be more of an issue because it's just unrelenting, but the sillage is more kind of ghostly. It's kind of like the person has been there or is on their way there.
Right. It sounds like his fragrances had that kind of presence, that they were like staying in the room, or that they, and he probably put them in his hair or something. Like, I mean, he did it in a certain way that it just like was part of him.
Right.
But I don't know. So it doesn't seem like, I mean, no one says that they were offended by it. So there should be a perfume made in tribute to. So incidentally, Iman made a tribute to David Bowie called Love Memoir, that she made a few years ago. And that's how I learned that she said that he wore Grey Vetiver by Tom Ford, which is funny because I had been searching for years to find out what fragrance that he wore. And I knew he wore like a vetiver kind of scent, but that really threw me off because I was like, well, that's the most popular vetiver scent on the market.
Right. And it's almost like that one is sort of like a tribute to Guerlain Vetiver for like a more modern audience,
Yeah. And, and so if you think, okay, like, do we have Guerlain Vetiver? Because maybe we should smell that together.
Yeah.
So Guerlain Vetiver, is really like a real old school vetiver.
I love that first burst, and it reminds me of like you just cut into ginger right away for just a few seconds.
Yeah, I mean,
and then it's just so layered.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like it has this kind of like it has that kind of similar thing like we were talking about with Elite, where it has that kind of like stuffy, like kind of like a little bit like dry, sort of.
Right.
There's some skin that smells like, I mean, I don't know if it has like, it's almost like maybe it has like a little civet or something, but it has this kind of like a little bit of like animal, like, like human smell. And it has I've heard that it has a tobacco-y facet to it. That's not like super blatant.
It's sort of like the interpretation of tobacco for its time, which was more sort of like the what is the word I'm looking for? Not necessarily like that really damp kind of tobacco you find in modern tobacco fragrances, but sort of more the essence of it. It's like, but I do pick that up. Sort of, it all started with Tobacco Original, which isn't really a tobacco scent, but kind of gives you sort of like the impression of it. And then you'd start to see tobacco as sort of a background element. But it is just as much that to me as it is the vetiver. We have Algebraist, my friend here. I don't know what would read as dated in Guerlain Vetiver today, though. Maybe it's more what it lacks for the modern audience. I agree with that. Well, with the modern audience, and I've talked about this before, actually, recently on Instagram, the modern audience is really driven by social media algorithms. It's that same concept of influencing, but never really stepping outside of that box of influence. So I think anything that is not within that right now is considered not modern. Yeah.
I mean, this smells peppery a little bit. It has like a lemony thing, and it almost smells like this kind of matcha tea. Like, I don't know, it has some kind of a, like, it has some kind of it smells like, I mean, I think I said in my book that it smells like someone who like has a job, like, and not in the way that like you need to wear it to the office, but it just smells like someone who's like has some wrinkles or like has like, been through something, I mean, and this sort of like this kind of, I think that the concept of vetiver, like, and I was calling it like the horseradish of aromatics, because it has this kind of like peppery sting to it. Like, it has this, this kind of bitter, like electrical bitter shock to it when you smell it, like the way that horseradish has, which makes it serious and makes it feel like, sort of like you can like trusted kind of, I don't know, grandparent or something, so I don't think it's its fault that it smells like dated. It's like, it's almost like vetiver itself just carries the like soul of someone who's older. Like, it's not vetiver's fault. It's not a part of like the audience. You know what I mean? It's like vetiver can't be that young. Like, it just can't wear those kind of clothes.
It isn't a very youthful, I mean, I know that's subjective, but youthful in smell. And it's high impact too.
Yeah.
So its character is bold, and whenever it is added to a composition, it will inevitably mutate everything around it. So it depends on how little or how much there is in a composition. So it's a bold character, but and also it is an acquired taste. Yeah, I love it. I just love vetiver.
Yeah, and it also changes on people's skin a lot.
It does, yeah.
Again, like, I mean, Bowie's skin must have really liked vetiver. It must have been great on him.
Right.
But yeah, like, so it's interesting thinking of him wearing a vetiver scent. Again, a vetiver scent is not usually associated with like pleasing a room of people. It's not like, you don't usually think, oh yeah, like they came into that big vetiver scent and everyone was like, what is that? Like, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do.
Like it's not like a big like compliment fragrance of vetiver scent, but on him, I guess it was.
Yeah. On the right person, it probably could be. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I was gonna say, another fragrance this has occurred to me. This is not, Bowie could have never worn this. It came out recently, but I smelled this at a Lucky Scent called Ganymede.
Ganymede, wow, that one is really futuristic smelling to me.
Totally.
Yeah.
In a way, I kind of thought this reminds me of like the kind of scent that I would have thought that Bowie could have worn if he had known about it. It smells like a futuristic space leather or something. Like, it's not space leather. So yeah, maybe like, if Bowie was still around, he would have worn this Ganymede because it's pretty strong stuff. It would have gotten him a lot of attention. I think people would remember it. It doesn't smell like anything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, it actually has this kind of like leathery kind of like, I don't know what to say, like almost like the kind of effect that you get from like wearing like Ralph Lauren polo, the original. Like, it has a little bit of that kind of like, I don't know, like that like kind of woody severity or something of a fragrance.
Right.
Like, I don't know, kind of like, even though it's futuristic, it has like that kind of like, there's sort of like an undercurrent of like a kind of like masculine woody like old school person.
Yeah, the sharp woodiness.
Yeah.
And it's the sharp woodiness pre woody amber material. Like, I think it was impressive before the advent of a lot of these woody amber materials, starting with Isoe Super and so forth, and Brosonide and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Bois Ambline Forte, there's tons of them. That to be able to give that effect was a really impressive feat. When only having a certain amount of materials available at the time, and I think Polo, the original Polo, is an example of that. There's very few of them that pulled it off, and then we just started to see Isoe Super really starting to get used more and more by the 80s. So
yeah.
Like,
I think it,
which it's not knocking it. I mean, I do appreciate it when it's used in a way that, I don't know, sits well with me. Sometimes it's just sort of, I get fatigued really quickly if there's a
Yeah.
lot of it. Yeah.
I feel like there's the kind of I guess they call them kind of like molecule fragrances. I think in the fragrance adventure I call them uh digital musks.
Like Sauvage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I do feel like in a way like that sort of digital musk genre
Yeah.
is like a little bit like it's sort of like spearheaded by Isoe Super and I don't know, and Broxton and all these things, kind of like these sort of scents that are in a way like these kind of transparent clouds that have these sort of like they feel like they have these like sort of like electric like digital pixels in them, and like when someone passes you on the street, you get like a like a cloud of video game dust in your face, but I think it's almost influenced by the way that people like people want to like wear like iPods and like kind of like go into the Matrix or something. I feel like it's sort of that.
Yeah.
It's like sort of it's like something like it's like a well-groomed iPod, airport person, like
Yeah.
it's like that's the inspiration, and the smells are quite transparent, which it's kind of a cool idea, these sort of smells that are supposed to be like pheromone like and are supposed to
Yeah.
um
And the
but
thing with those materials too is they're molecular wise, the molecules themselves are heavy, so that's what makes them so substantive, and they stick in the air, they stick on you, they're enduring and lasting.
yeah
But they also have a certain toppiness and sharpness that, even though they're heavier molecules, unlike something like sandalwood, which is a very which has a lot of heavy molecules, they can be top heart base notes. Like, I mean, everything actually can be a top heart and base note, but there's just something very toppy about them that really spiky. There's like a spikiness to them. And my friend, the algebraist here, says it quite appropriately. These materials are crutches for perfumers because there's something amorphous and vaguely pleasant about them. There's almost like a sedative quality to them. But I think they're futuristic as well, because you don't quite in nature smell too many things that have that kind of punchy, spiky tenacity to them. It's very they do feel very futuristic and
like
digital.
it's almost like it's like communicating the idea that like you're freshly groomed, but instead of like doing it with soap, it's like doing it by like electrical transmission.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's weird. It's like you have some sort of like, it's like, oh, I'm clean from like all the static that is around me,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, totally. The best musical fragrance fits, quote unquote, says Nick S. For me, were Brian Ferry wearing Ormond Man and Prince wearing Pie, Givenchy Pie. Somehow they both seem to complement their personalities so well. And we have Tripler.
Ormond Man was actually one that came up recently. I was saying it came up in the Bowie fragrances. Like it was something that was proposed by many people as a fragrance that maybe Bowie wore. I mean, it's a kind of a, one of the kind of earlier niche fragrances, and it's a British fragrance, and it's woody, and it's great. So I don't know, that is a possibility. I think, and and Brian Ferry certainly, and Brian Eno, and who apparently is a frag head, by the way, Brian Eno. But so like the idea that they could have worn Ormond Man is certainly, or woman is a possibility. They're very similar, Ormond Man and women.
They're complements to each other. And Giza is the perfumer, and Giza also did the eccentric molecules. So if somebody could do that kind of like bridging the natural with the digital, so to speak, in perfume, he would be really skilled with that.
Yeah, that seems like, and also he's like his Germanness kind of complements like Bowie's like Berlin period
kraut rock, kind of like
So I feel like that could be really good.
Connie Plank is. I mean, he's like the Connie Plank of perfumers.
Yeah. Another thing I want to talk about is like this Florida water. In the book, but I thought just wanted to throw this idea out there because we're in a real perfume what do you call it, perfume forward crowd or perfume approving crowd.
It is, I think, almost all of them. That's
smelled Florida water before, but I mean, it's apparently kind of like the American version of of like eau de cologne or something. It's actually pretty old. Like the label used to say how old it is, but I think it's like from the mid 1800s or something.
Yeah.
And when you smell it, it has this, has a sort of like, citrus, like lavender kind of thing, or sorry, citrus, like kind of like aromatic thing, like like the old school eau de cologne, but it actually has all these other things. Like it has some kind of clove in it. It has lavender, and it has like it has the whole quality of the full accord actually reminds people a lot of Coca-Cola,
Yeah,
and
well, the Pentagon and the bitter orange, because
yeah,
of those to me you can pick up, because bitter orange is in the formula for Coca-Cola. So that's totally, when you combine that with the spices, etc. Definitely. Do you know who loved Florida water?
Who?
Do you know that Lucille Ball? In fact, on her deathbed, one of her, I think her last words were, "Get me the Florida water."
Oh, Florida. It's a great scent. And one thing I wanted to impart on people that is just a pet theory of mine is that because this came out, and then Coca-Cola came out, and Coca-Cola actually, when it was first released, was kind of almost in the genre of like a medicine. It was like sold by a pharmacist, and it had a lot of ingredients like that Florida water has in it. And I mean, including famously cocaine, but a lot of these other things. And so basically, like, I feel like as Coca-Cola has transitioned out of like a sort of medicine and into just a beverage, I feel like what's been sort of lost is the fact that Coca-Cola is actually America's quintessential eau de cologne. Like
totally.
Coca-Cola, it is our cologne. Like that is like the smell of that's like the American accord,
And Coca-Cola was just as important for its aromatic qualities as well, because these tonics that were used for health and vitality and were supposed to, cure gout, cure fatigue, cure hysteria, God knows what. They were supposed to stimulate the senses, which obviously would include your sense of smell and taste and what have you. And here's a fun little fact for those of you who are from the New England area, who may have parents or grandparents who refer to soda pop as tonic. The reason for that is because these sodas used to be tonics, health
tonic or whatever.
So that's why you hear some older folks now, they refer to soda here in Massachusetts, that
it's tonic.
It's tonic. I wanted to highlight. Oh, I'm sorry, Adam. I just want to highlight quickly. Dahlia here, Morrissey wearing CDG Avignon is perhaps least expected.
Great at his concerts. He's like throwing like scented Avignon. Apparently, I think he pipes out the smell of Avignon into the crowd.
Is that the Dahlia I know? Is that you, Dahlia, or is this a different Dahlia? You could just say I'm a different Dahlia because I don't know you. But if you are the Dahlia I know, just say yes, I am, or you can be private about it.
It's interesting how Morrissey's found this I know, right? How Morrissey's kind of like also got this sort of like niche fragrance association. Let's see what else we have over here.
Dahlia, you aren't the one that I know. You just confirmed that, but you're welcome. I'm glad that you're here.
This is actually, I wanted just to mention this. This is a fragrance called Bow Makers that I really like, by DS and Durga. And I made friends the last few years with DS, who's the perfumer of DS and Durga. This fragrance is like, has this sort of amazing, like the sort of mission statement for it was that it was supposed to be a sort of influenced by like American transcendentalists like Emerson and like Walt Whitman and stuff. And like it has this kind of, it smells like, the inspiration was, it smells like someone who's like making like violins and instruments in like in like a log cabin or something, and it has like the resin for like making a bow, and it has a kind of like almost like I don't know, like turpentine, like terpenoid kind of smells, and it's a really interesting, it really smells like that, like you really feel like you went into a like an old shed where someone's like crafting a wooden instrument. But anyways, in speaking with DS from DS and Durga about Perfumery, really was interesting for me as someone who's just a fan, because I'm not on the inside of making a perfume. Obviously, I don't make it myself. You know, I just am interested in it. And speaking to him about it, it's people who make perfume are really different than people who are fans of perfume. As what I mean, like, he doesn't care about any of the stuff that like we're talking about.
But here's the thing. I actually studied perfume making as well. There's a very so there's a Venn diagram of it, I guess you could say, where there's a very small overlap of us who are just as much like frag heads as we are people who have made fragrance. But it is true. Outside of that small overlap, I have met a lot who didn't even start in a place where maybe we have started. But you're right. Proceed. Sorry. Some of us are out there where we're both. But
yeah, of course. Yeah. I've got a subject sample of one, for my research here. But when speaking with DS, and he's a brilliant artist, and I realized the way he thinks about perfume is just like he just like has all these. It's like paint. He just has all these things, and he just feels his way through it. Like he doesn't think about it, and he just feels it. Like if you gave him, he was like sort of saying, he's like, look, like, if you had like a guitar and like I said, you could only use, these notes or whatever, or these things, like you just make a song out of those notes. You'd figure it out. You just make a cool song. But I was like, you can only use these 12 notes. You just make something cool. You could give me 12 of anything, and I do the best. I'd make a cool perfume out of 12 random anythings you gave me, And I was, the way he thinks of it is he's just like, he would just feel it out until it worked, like he doesn't start by being like, I would love to make a fragrance centered around sandalwood. Like he just, Like he just starts, like, it sounds like he just starts with anything and he just goes and feels it till it's done. Like it's like how, I would feel if I'm making a drawing or a song. Like I'm not like, I would love to make a song centered around the word cabin, and I'm like, cabin, the song, what will it be like? Cabin, what's some things to do with cabins? Like that's not the way you write a song. You write a song because you just have a melody and you like just feel it and you start like walking around and you just, the words come, and it's all part of the same process. And it made me realize that, like, it's funny for like me to observe it intellectually afterwards. And I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. Like, this is what this person did. But I actually feel like the process of making a perfume is so visceral. And it's actually not like, it's not in the same way that like me as a fan analyzes it. And this is actually one of the few things I'm interested in that I don't try to do myself. Like, because I'm interested in, obviously, as I said, painting and filmmaking and music, and I feel like on the inside of a lot of those things, but not perfumery. Perfumery, I'm a fan. And this book is really just, the perfume adventure is just to encourage other people to learn about it and become fans and stuff. But I think it's interesting to, that a perfumer may not see these materials this way. They see it more just like as like a color that they're using on a palette, and they might feel it much more viscerally than I'm describing when I'm talking about it.
Right. And I think that, that could very well be an approach for some perfumers, but there's like myriad approaches to approaches that I would never imagine, And
I'm also paraphrasing what he said. Like he might watch this and be like, that's not how I feel. So he obviously knows a ton about the history of perfume as well. I just mean, like, it was just interesting to see him the way he worked. In the way that I recognized it from other endeavors I had. Like I recognized his process as a perfumer in the way that I might make a painting or a song. But what's funny is I don't have that. If I was going to make a perfume, because I don't make them, I'd be like, oh, I really love like, the smell of oak wood, and I really love like vetiver, and I really, and I would just be like mixing them and be like, what have, I mean, I don't have a.
Oh yeah. I've totally done that approach myself when blending stuff. Yeah.
I don't even know. Anyways, I just wanted it to be said. But
no, that's cool. I really appreciate bow makers. Actually, when the last time I was in New York City, which was sadly 2019, pre-pandemic, when the hotel that I stayed at had the DS and Durga bow makers bath products. So there was like the shampoo and body wash, and it just smelled gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's one I do appreciate from them. So just wanted to add that there. I was introduced to it from a hotel stay. Yeah. It's good stuff.
Real life.
Tripler says one can make something, doesn't make it skillfully made necessarily. That's true. Yeah, we've had conversations like that. It all depends on whether or not somebody has a knack for it, or really has the conviction that's necessary to be at the discipline as well, because
because
tough stuff.
yeah, you have to measure it. Yeah, you have to have a lot of precision, but also like I feel like you have to be able to stir your soul in some ways. I mean, like, you know,
Yeah.
really like, I mean, I feel like somebody who's really sensitive enough to smell and the feeling behind it, that they're like, they know when they've been like arrested by an accord, and they're like, wow, that's meaningful, you know, like, you know, so I don't know. Yeah,
And
so
it takes that kind of like almost like, not necessarily, I don't want to overgeneralize, but often the whole brained individuals. So you have some people who are stronger left brain, stronger who are right brain, but like the whole brain, you already have an advantage because you have like that, you know, unencumbered creativity, but you also can kind of, you can sort of distill the concepts into things that are necessary for building it, like mathematics and chemistry and all that sort of stuff that is a little drier for some people, but if you have that whole brain, you can easily switch and integrate. So yeah. So are there some, oh, go ahead, sorry, Adam.
I was wondering, do you think that anyone has any questions like from the audience about anything that, you know, we can try to answer?
Oh yeah, I actually encourage that. If anybody who's tuned in right now has any questions, please don't hesitate to ask either one of us or both of us.
Sure.
Also, don't forget to hit the like button. If one of my dear friends who are tuned in right now can let me know what the current like count is. Sometimes I try to do that, but then it just looks like I'm distracted. I'd rather have somebody else announce it. We'll see where we are.
And also, if you tuning on this fragrance adventure book is a free PDF that you can download, and the link is you can download from my website adamgreen.info, or also from here, right? The link is here.
It's in the description. There's a link to your main site so people can explore everything that you do, your music, etc. And also there is a direct link for the PDF for download.
So like I'm trying to think. So other things lately, I've been actually really getting into wearing a lot of barbershop scents. I don't know if you'd ever smelled this one before, but it's pretty cool. It's by Florist. It's called 1962.
I missed out on picking that up when it was still affordable.
Oh, okay.
I have a sample of it though. It's really nice.
It's sort of like half Halston Z14.
Yeah.
And then it has like also this sort of polo green thing, like like original polo. It has that kind of pininess, but it's almost like Halston with pininess. It's a cool smell. So is it really expensive now? I thought it was ran out of print recently.
It went out. It was discontinued. I love that you say out of print, because that would be usually what I would say too, because I've been a record collector for years too. Right. It's really like you could say that as well, but I love that. Yeah, it's stopped being made probably like 3 years ago, like 2 years ago. Yeah. So you know what happens? It ends up spiking in price, and I don't know, probably you have to spend $200-$300 for it if it comes up.
The person that just wrote, did they write a question or they just wrote in a comment?
It was just a comment. We'll show it. We'll highlight it. It's difficult to judge a worthwhile accord. The signature of Gucci Rush could have been something chucked away had it been encountered by another perfumer.
Totally, right? Yeah, I mean, you'd have to almost be like a wild person to like have invented Gucci Rush and understand that was so cool, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, I was gonna say, we should actually talk about Minatore.
Yeah,
because this is a smell that this is the only smell that Bowie himself has said he wore. This is the only one that he's actually said, I wear this. He said he collects it, that it's hard to get the old bottles, and he tries to stock up on them.
The old bottles, you're right. Yeah, the unfortunate part is when I think the Paloma Picasso brand was sold elsewhere to some conglomerate, I don't remember which one, the formulas were affected as a result because, you know, number crunchers. It's not IFRA. Everybody wants to talk about IFRA, like, oh, IFRA did it. No. Most of the time when these things happen, it's about money. And unfortunately,
this is like, I guess Cosmere is the older one.
Yeah, that's the one that I have as well. Yeah, distributed by Cosmere. I'll give it a little spray. I have a number of things now. I have a little interesting layering going on here.
This has a fruit, but not like a normal fruit that you usually smell. Like, it has like a cantaloupe kind of like, I don't know. It's like, it has like I almost, we were talking about Costas. It has like that kind of like,
it does.
Human skin fruit, like almost like Yeah, you know what I mean though? Like it has sort of like a kind
Warm
of
skin.
melony kind of.
Yeah, like a warm skin with some perspiration.
Yeah, yeah, it has a little perspiration, and it has like, I don't know, something sweet, like maybe like I want to say it has like some kind of cardamom or something kind of like sweet kind of thing, like a little bit,
Mm.
but it's powdery. You know, I don't know if it has aldehydes or something, but it has something kind of like.
I imagine that there's some aldehydes. It's not a very aldehydic scent, but for the lift, you have that aldehydes that lifts the orange.
Yeah.
I call these the orange creamsicle scents of the
Yeah,
90s.
yeah, orange creamsicle, yeah, because it has that kind of sandalwoody.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And
like
the
kind
sandalwood has a butteriness to it, and the vanilla adds, there's some lactones.
Yeah, exactly. It's got this sort of milky sandalwoody vibe, and it has like, yeah, I don't know. It's like it has some kind of it's funny to think of it as a minotaur. I mean, like a minotaur, because it's made by Picasso's daughter, as a tribute to her father,
That's right. Yeah.
So, so maybe like that sort of civity kind of causticity thing is like supposed to be like the beast a little bit.
Just a soupçon, just a tiny bit though.
Yeah, a tiny bit. Yeah, it's not like one of those. It's not very animalic, but it's like it's strangely not it's not animalic at all, but it's not super animalic. But
it's just enough to make that impression. And the best way to notice it is if you were to put this aside something that was similar that's modern, you would notice that it's lacking in
no new modern of those like sweet things would ever put this note in it, but it has it smells the minotaur like pooped like 500 feet away, so it's not big deal. Or it also like has that kind of like you could maybe like that kind of athletic massage thing, like like a oil like Koros, like it has like you can imagine like that like Theseus who's fighting the minotaur like has to like after the battle, he's like kind of oiling himself and he's like all sweaty and like, he's got some like tray of figs.
Parlez-moi, the brand did, and I forgot the name of it because it just didn't stick in my head because I was like, this is Minotaur, except it doesn't have that musky underlayer to it. It's just, it seems so reductive to me. I'm like, what was the point of this? I guess okay, and it would cost more retail now than even a vintage version of this. Right. So,
I mean, maybe we should just try wearing this a bit and see what happens. Maybe people go crazy for it. I don't know, but it's hard to imagine when you smell this Minotaur again that that this would be a fragrance that when he died, everyone would remember him by. I mean, and this is from the 90s, so he probably did wear Minotauri for sure. It's just he didn't wear it. He wore it like, like 40 years ago or whatever, like he didn't wear it like,
it was
didn't wear it in like recent memory.
His 90s
and
discovery.
It smells like a bit like
90s. It totally does. Yeah, I remember this smell being in the environment, like similar scents to this, because this became kind of a popular accord actually with other men's scents.
Right. Yeah, like Roma
Uomo and a handful of others. You would see it distilled and kind of like variations on the theme and a number of them. But this was, I think, the original. This is the original. I don't think that there was anything that quite had such a pronounced orange amber in this respect, because it's much more vanillic. Anything prior to that, maybe it's a descendant of, say, Lagerfeld or Kale Homme, but that was way more resinous and way more like
Lagerfeld. You're talking about the orange Lagerfeld. That's like a lot more. That's a lot more intense. Like in my mind, that's almost like some cheaper or something. But
that's much more intense. But you would have, that was the closest thing that you would see to a pronounced orange or mandarin or whatever kind of citrus with that amber together, with the labdanum together. But that's where the similarities end, really, because this is so much more sheer and ethereal than those.
I kind of think that tradition is carried into these sort of Italian, like, designer kind of like fresh aromatic scents, like kind of like I guess like Dolce and Gabbana is like the one.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's almost become like an Italian tradition to like have like these sort of sandalwoody, citrusy scents.
Totally.
For the sort of like almost like I was watching this video today, which he was saying, like a barbershop. This guy was saying like a barbershop in, Europe or in Italy or even in like, like North Africa is different than a barbershop in the States. Like, we're used to sort of these sort of barbershop smells like Pinot Clubman and stuff that, when we were kids, but that, that actually like a barbershop kind of means something a little different depending where you are.
True. Yeah.
So thinking of like a sort of like Moroccan barbershop or, like, I really don't know.
Yeah, sort of like the Mediterranean would kind of barbershop style, as you said, would be much more the bergamot and the citrus with the sandalwood and some herbs in between, versus sort of the barbershop that would be more in a fougere-ish aromatic direction. If we're talking north of the Mediterranean, like the UK,
Marrakesh a few years ago, and like some of the smells were, I mean, it was honestly like some of the best smells I've ever smelled in my life, and also some of the worst.
Yeah,
that would be like 5 feet away from each other. But because there's smells like, in the like market, like souk market, there's like like a lot of leather tannery, which smells quite gnarly but kind of interesting, and then there's also spices and ambers and stuff everywhere, a lot, and people selling it on the street, like all kinds of heaps of different spices and pigments and cool things. But I thought that I think I put it in I put in the fragrance adventure, this idea of the Serge Lutens scent called Amber Sultan, which I really feel like kind of captures that feeling of like what a souk kind of smells like, more than like I know in the past people have been sort of perfumers since like Guerlain's like Shalimar, have like been sort of fascinated in like capturing like the vision of like an Arabian Nights fantasy for Europeans, like a sort of the Arabian Nights like books sort of like filtered through like the European perfumers and sort of like vanilla, like chai latte kind of vibe. But I really feel like with Amber Sultan, it's like more like photorealistic, like you're in the souk, like this is like a spicy experience, like this, it's almost like it really, that's a really cool scent. It's very vivid. It is Amber Sultan, and that's another scent that you could kind of almost imagine that being like the Bowie scent.
Right. That was one of the first Serge Lutens that I was introduced to years ago, 2007, when I went into the Barney's counter, and that was one of the samples that I brought home. It was Arabi, which is in a similar vein, which I love. Chergui, Cèdre, and Rousse. So all the spicy ones. Because I said, I guess because I said to the sales assistant, I like spicy. And that started my love affair with Serge Lutens, which is out of control. I have like 30 some. I have more Serge Lutens in my collection than anything else.
Oh, really?
Perhaps besides Guerlain.
Oh, speaking of Serge Lutens and Borneo, we should talk a little bit about Kashina, who wrote the intro, because Kashina is like a really, really important influence in me writing this book. I mean, like I wouldn't have really written it without being exposed to her work.
Right. Do you mind, Adam, very quickly? We're just going to turn over to the chat quickly, and then let's move on to that.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just going to get a cat. Okay, catching up here. This is a question that you don't have to. I mean, you can answer. If there was a perfume called the Moldy Peaches, Moldy Peaches, the Moldy Peaches, how would you want that to play out?
It's like it's funny because we were just talking about Gucci Rush, It's like now I'm just picturing some rancid Gucci Rush. That wouldn't be too bad though. Maybe like maybe you start with Gucci Rush and then you just keep like kicking it in the balls or whatever.
Really macerate it, really get it all chunked up and roughened up. Yeah. Algebra says here, penny pinchers have even cheapened the atomizers on latest Frederic Malle stock and the juice of some of the fragrances since 2024 batches.
I mean, it seems kind of just, it's like, if you like any fragrance, just buy it then when you can get it and you like it, because it's always just gets worse. Like they just water it down, like every year it just gets weaker. I don't know why.
Yeah. And just be grateful you have it as you have it then, short of having to spend X hundreds of dollars on the older versions. But if you can find the older versions and you can afford them, to try to do that. In most cases, not all, but in I don't know. I get probably people would debate most too, but in many cases, at least. We have another one from Algebraeus. The Minotaur variation by the same perfumer for Pas la Moi is called Wake Up the World. I guess meaning to wake up to copies.
Wake up world.
That's the name. Wake up. I think it's Wake Up the World, or maybe it is Wake Up World, but it didn't awaken me to anything. But that was when I was talking about from
odd and
one.
unusual sense in your collection. I talk about, I think one scent that was really interesting that I ordered from Saudi Arabia, from Abdul Samad Al Karashi, is a fragrance called it's actually called Heritage Blend. So not to be confused with Guerlain Heritage. So it's like it's an oud that is some kind of a blend of ouds, but it really is interesting smelling. Like it has this kind of, it smells like histories, like it smells like a little bit like damp. Like I was describing it as like a fungal library. Like it smells like a museum of different kinds of like funguses, and like and also has like kind of flowers floating on top of some kind of like fish bowl, and like you feel like you're sort of like getting a lot of information out of it, and like I almost feel like you're transmitting like the feeling that you yourself are like a living museum or something. But like the I don't know, there's something about like oud in general, like that I feel like it sort of like exists at like a cross section of like human, fungus, and like or actually I say it's almost like plant, fungus, and animal intersection, right? It's almost like it has this sort of like I mean, and some of the oud fragrances are pretty pungent, like this. Even like that one that for Frederick Malle, I guess is that the night or something, is quite pungent.
The night, yeah.
Hindi oud, like a lot of the oud that people call like Hindi oud is quite actually like has like a kind of it smells like curdled milk or like baby diapers, like right about that.
Yeah.
Some and then other ones, are very like palatable, like like I guess like Cambodian oud is like generally like I think when it's listed, it's usually I get the impression it's like pretty smooth.
Yeah, Cambodian oud to me is much more of like an incensey quality with that strange, peculiar, sharp pungency that almost kind of reminds people of burnt electronics, which is kind of, it's peculiar, but I find that to be delightful. My favorite experience with oud actually is the agarwood chips themselves that have been infected.
It's so good. Yeah, because there's a store in New York called Enfleurage where they sell the
Enfleurage. Yeah, that's where I picked up some. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, when I lit it, and I felt like I was inside of like a Neolithic cave from before memory, and I felt like it was just like a feeling that was so primal, it was like being at the Rite of Spring Stravinsky or something. It was like this kind of like it really, you felt all the animalness and the like religiousness of that ingredient, like, I mean, this, and the fact that, that it takes all those years of the tree, for people that don't know, the agarwood tree gets infected with a certain fungal strain that's like particularly, you need to like, and then they kind of harvest it for like years and years and years until they finally, it's like just right. And then that's like you got your oud, but it actually has a history in it. It's like this sort of aged ingredient that, is kind of mangled from the start, and it looks twisted and sinewy and weird. Like it's
really, the
very
pieces.
strange. Yeah, but those oud chips are really worth getting, and it's good to get it from a place like Enfleurage because it's real. There are a lot of people make things,
When I was collecting different aromatic materials and oils, they were one of my resources, especially for the very limited production of actual enfleurage of various flowers like gardenia. I find agarwood burning to be transcendental. It's really this transcendental.
It's insane. Yeah, and that's maybe like the most interesting way that you could experience oud. I agree. I mean, but you can also just spend $1 zillion because these oud fragrances are so expensive,
and some of them, and I am, a critic of some of the oud fragrances. Oud is something that I feel like needs to be really respected, and I think that there's sometimes where it's a little overdone or underdone, or too synthetic or, too many animalics with it that kind of bury the nuances of it. So it's once you do find an oud that really pays respect for how magical the material is, it's something else.
Yeah.
Absurd
Yeah.
Nose, just for fun. I know you're both Brian, fans.
Yeah.
This is true.
I was gonna look when did he make Another Green World? Like
1975.
1975. Okay, so 75. We know he's actually a big Guerlain fan, I think, right?
Yeah.
So what was Guerlain coming out with in 75?
It was kind of a dry period for Guerlain. I think maybe Parure, which was discontinued some time ago, was around that time. Nahima was a couple of years after that. But also, even if we're not thinking specifically of Guerlain, Another Green World makes me think of something like
Jiki or something, or
Jiki could be one, or even from a different brand or house like Estee Lauder Alliage.
Oh, right.
Yeah, or even Aramis Devon, or
I love Aramis Devon.
Yeah,
so good. Yeah. I think that's a really good one. That it's sort of a galbanum-y, right? Devon. It's like it has like a deep forest, like a countryside vibe.
And the secret weapon for that and for a few other fragrances of a similar vein is actually the use of a jasmine accord. And you would think, well, jasmine, that's not particularly woody. But something happens when you have a jasmine accord with these other accords that really bring out that woody quality.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Devon is really great. And like Yatagan, Caron, Yatagan.
Right. That's there's actually I feel like Amouage has made a fragrance called Overture, which I think is kind of like a tribute to Yatagan. Or I just say Yatagan. I don't really know how to say it.
No, it's fine. There's no judgment here. If you hear me saying a different way, it doesn't mean you must be pronouncing it in the same manner.
But this fragrance called Overture, people should check out if you like that Yatagan smell, because it's an update on it. It's quite good. Right. Gardenia is nice.
Bring back oud wood intense, says this gentleman.
But I feel like a lot of these oud, these ouds are, and not even to their detriment, but they're kind of composites of different aroma chemicals that make these oud accords. So like a lot of oud is sort of conceptual in like Western perfumery. It's like actually kind of like, my sense is that like a lot of fragrances don't really have an oud molecule in them at all. It's just like a bunch of chemicals.
Well, they're all oud bases. IFF has an oud base. Givaudan has an oud base. Man has an oud base. They all have oud bases. Right. So I think a lot of them just sort of like almost in a modular sense.
Yeah.
Oh, this is going to have oud. We're going to use this oud base. And then some who may claim to use real agarwood may actually put maybe 0.001% of the real agarwood just to say that they do. Does it actually make a significant impact? That is up to debate. But yeah, you're right.
There are certain. I mean, when the more you get into sort of collecting fragrances that are coming from the Middle East, you do experience real agarwood scents. But I do wonder if there's any agarwood in any Tom Ford oud scent. I mean, I don't know, but
I wouldn't place any money on that. Dahlia wants us to send Iggy Pop.
Oh, wow. It's funny because he really fits in there. It's actually funny because before Mick Rock, who's my friend, who's a photographer, he took the photos of a lot of. He was actually Bowie's official photographer for a long time. So he's and he took the cover of like pinups, and he took the cover. He took the photo on the cover of Lou Reed's Transformer and Iggy Pop's Raw Power and stuff. I asked him about this. I said, "Do you remember Bowie smelling really good?" And he said, "No." He's like, "I don't remember anything about that." He doesn't remember Bowie smelling anything. So it kind of goes to show that maybe Bowie in the 70s wasn't like really like as much of a fume head as he became in the 80s and 90s,
Yeah. And maybe maybe the Miss Dior that was on his dresser was sort of,
Yeah.
a little delicately applied and worked into his, his gender bending, and
Yeah,
wasn't
maybe
really
not that sensitive about smell, but I feel like it's interesting that he doesn't even remember. He's the person that I knew that knew Bowie the best, and he didn't seem to remember that at all. So, but anyways, yeah. So what were we talking about? I did want to mention about Kashina that that she.
yeah. Sorry, we totally went on a detour there. Let's go.
She wrote an intro to this book. But basically, like I had kind of had been collecting scent and researching it, and going to like all these shops, and I read the Michael Edwards book on perfumes, and the Luca Turns book, and the Perfume Guide, which is amazing, and has a lot, like really. I'm sorry, it's by Luca Turn and Tanya Sanchez. And that book, which has these sort of like really vivid and poetic descriptions, but also they're really academic because they're really like they're coming out as like insiders into like the chemistry of these perfumes. So and also Rosha Dove has a great book called the I don't know, Perfumer's Guide or something. Anyways, that book is a great resource. So I read in a book. Actually, it was a book by it's actually about a lady who makes a scent with Bertrand Duchefort. She makes a fragrance. It is called I have it somewhere.
I can't think of that either. I don't think I have that book. That's why.
It's a scent for my brain is anyways. But I had read. It's called The Perfume Lover. Anyways, I'd read like 4 or 5 books about perfume, and then I started to. I was basically like started to read Kashina's Instagram, which at the time was called Elysium Verum, and now it's called Elysium Verum
Nova. Yeah.
But it was like a complete revelation to me because it was like, I don't know, just reading 2 or 3 of the reviews, like I was instantly like, this person is a genius. Like it was like she's like the Emily Dickinson of like perfume writing. But yeah, like the way that she would get to like the matter of what these scents meant and like what they felt like was so romantic and visceral and like and I felt like she really could like reading her writing was like being in like a landscape where you like feel like you like taste the like lichens and the snails on the floor and like it's just like a whole universe of like weird texture and like fetish and I don't know, obscurity and like antiquity, like I don't know, like just it was like her writing is like a carnival of language. It's like it's like an absolute carnival to start getting into the way she describes scents, and from there basically like it convinced me that I could try to write about them. So we started to talk a bit on Instagram, and I tried to crack it. Like I wrote about a few scents, and then she wrote, sent me a few, and we like would send a few packages back and forth to get, to each other. And I tried to review the ones that she sent me, and she would review the ones I sent her. And so she just like completely inspired the idiom in which I was writing. Like I basically like I pretty much just wrote the book for her to read it, so it's like she's the main reason why the book exists, honestly, is because it's just like was inspired by the fact that she made me feel like I could try to describe scents in like the way that I like to write with lyrics. And and so I don't know. Anyways, it's an honor that she wrote the intro, but everyone should check it out. She has a few books out. One's called East of Borneo, and one of them is called Puce Memories. And there's a third. I can't remember the title of it. I think there's 3 books out at the moment that are Kashina. But you can also just read her blog, Elysium Verum Nova, which is like, to me, like, essential. Or I think it's to me, it's like the greatest writing about scent that anyone's ever done.
I think out of everybody who I've become acquainted with, who are fragrance writers, if you will, she has inspired me the most to step outside of my discomfort and express scent in my own ways without any concern of whether or not people think it's cohesive or coherent or too poetic or what
Yeah.
have you. When reading her stuff, I realized, I'm going to write the way I want to write things. And as a
Yeah,
result, sometimes I write things and they're not conventional reviews. And I am indebted to her for encouraging me with that. I think she is brilliant in her.
Yeah, it's like, it's like, yeah, it's
language.
like, yeah, the way that it's sort of like, she'll even write, like, sometimes it'll feel like just like a conversation between characters will be her review. Or, you feel like you're just like watching the way that her brain is, processing the just like the feeling of a smell. And like, it could be anything. And so but yeah, it's like she just gives you the picture of the interior landscape that she's getting. And and it's so honest. And it's beautiful the way that she reviews scents. And and I feel like, there's whatever, just years and years of mystery for people to go, just to explore all of her reviews and to like understand what she's saying, because because her mind is so vast.
Mm. So for those who want to look her up on Instagram, that is her handle on Instagram, and I do really encourage you to follow her. And and it isn't even so much about the photography. What I love is it's almost like that's secondary. It's really her writing. She's great. She's great. I would love to collaborate with her someday. I think that would be wonderful.
Best.
We have some more questions here. Pat Lester, any fave modern niche or indie house that have perplexed your olfactory to the point of having an epiphany moment?
Let me think. I mean, well, like I think we talked about that Ganymede, where like I actually thought, wow, this is actually the kind of scent that Bowie would have worn if he had known about it. That was definitely for that. But a scent I like that I pulled for this, and I don't know if it's going to be revelatory to anyone, but I don't know if you've checked this house out, Rogue Perfumery.
Yep, Manuel Cross.
Yeah, this scent is so good. I mean, I guess I'm almost done with it. But I mean, it does smell like a 1980s. It smells like Czar, like some 1980s barbershop smell. But for me, it's like the best one I've come across. And I love smelling like this. It just, I don't know. It reminds me of like, again, like a very visceral memory of being younger, and like, maybe like the first time I thought somebody like, was like dressed really well, like, to go out somewhere like at night, and like, was wearing like a tie, and they like had sort of splashed on their, just shaved, and it smelled like, like it just, someone smelled really, really good, and like it like handsome or something, it feels like that to me. And like, I don't know. So it's nice to wear it and just like feel like that kind of like, I don't know, that hug of like just something kind of like covered with the exoskeleton of some kind of like very like handsome souled vibe that I really love about this scent. But it's pretty old fashioned. I don't think it's like a, do I own clones? Yeah, actually, what's funny is I couldn't afford Silver Mountain Water, or I guess I could afford Silver Mountain Water. I didn't want to buy Silver Mountain Water because it's so expensive, and but I knew that I had to like know all about it because Bowie wore it. So I got this by Armoff.
Yes.
Called Club de Nuit Sillage, and it's really close to Silver Mountain Water. It's like, if you want to like get a clone of Silver Mountain Water, this is pretty good. I think it smells a lot like it. But yeah, like I think we didn't really talk about Silver Mountain Water because I was sort of saying like we talk about it as like a tea musk, and it is sort of like a futuristic tea musk.
Yeah,
this actually isn't a bad bottle for it. What it
smells. They kept with the silver theme. It kept that.
But Silver Mountain Water, it smells like it smells a little bit like CK1, but if it was like just like a lot more like attention grabbing with like kind of like fruity notes and like big purple steam coming out of it, and like I don't know, if I feel like it smells like a because it has this sort of like what's the word, like it's not a cranberry, like what's that ingredient that smells kind of like what's it called,
Blackcurrant.
Blackcurrant. Yeah, it has that blackcurrant kind of note, and like you know, some kind of like floral. Like it smells to me like purple popsicles that are like making an ice palace out of like steam, and I don't know, like futuristic, like robot, like I don't know, like some kind of like motherboard of, you know, robots that are like have it's a. But it also smells to me like a frozen hair gel of like a teenage girl or something.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
it has it. It's a weird smell. It's funny to think of Bowie wearing it. But it is in the tradition of like CK1 and stuff. So it's not probably like. But again, like in the tradition of that, we're saying that Bowie wears like more like, you know, attention grabbing and like scents. It does smell a little bit like it smells like a bit like the royal version of CK1. You know, it's like it's the CK1 that like princes wear or whatever.
Have you met Gabe Oppenheim? I think that's who Tripler is referring to, the author of the Ghost Perfume.
I did recently check out his book, which is really interesting. Like which was about how like it's about Creed. And how like, you know, how long story short, how like Pierre Bourdon perfumed like 90% of their fragrances, and he, you know, is uncredited for it. And it's really interesting. I mean, it's when you go into like a Creed shop and they have this whole spiel about like how the brand's been around since the whatever 1700s, right. And like no one even has like a bottle of it. I heard since like maybe like the 80s or some 70s.
I think like the earliest probably was like the early 70s. Yes. And it was a very like just a small outfit as well. Yeah. It wasn't like widely distributed. Yeah.
And they say all this crazy stuff like Winston Churchill wore this and like Frank Sinatra wore this, is like completely all lies. And his book just talks about how it's like, if you go into a Creed shop, they just are like giving you nonstop lies, like from the beginning that you get there. It's like it's almost, it should be like illegal to say this stuff.
We had a great conversation with him on here, spring of 2023. Yeah, you should check it out. Yeah,
he is a perfumer. Yeah, that's a cool. I got interested in it. Or I got the book. I guess. Well, I don't even know. Like, well, I guess around when it came out. But I was gonna say, when I've been writing this book for quite a while. During COVID, even I was writing this, and I lost my sense of smell in the middle of writing it. You know, from COVID. So parts of the book I wrote from my own memory of what the smells smelled like, which was actually a fun exercise. You know, I mean, and then once I got my smell back, I obviously checked it again. But it was a cool exercise sometimes to just describe smells from memory, because it made me realize like what I really think it is. Yeah, so I don't know if that book. I guess people should really read it. The Ghost Perfumer.
Yeah. We had a great. You should check it out, Adam. That we have an archived effluvium from maybe it was February, March of 2023. You can look back. I wish that I put the names of my guests on the thumbnails now, like I do now. So you just have to look at the description. But we had a great chat with Gabe around that time on here on a live stream. So yeah, he's always. I
was gonna say, like, and actually, this doesn't contradict anything that's in the Gabe book. Just in defense of the concept of Creed, because like I feel like, you know, it's easy to sort of just dislike it because it's really expensive, and you know, and as now we've sort of pointed out, there's a sort of like fake history aspect to it. But I do feel like there's some kind of compelling about the way that the fragrances in Creed are like a bit of like, you know, with especially like Silver Mountain Water and Green Irish Tweed and Aventus, you know, which, like, you know, a lot of people kind of consider to be like, you know, the sort of king of, you know, modern scents or something.
Yes. Somebody asked you what batch you had.
Yeah. But you know, but I'm saying, so in that sense, I feel like it's almost like it is a little bit like it's a canon, you know, like for our times. And what's interesting about that particular canon is that it's for men, because, you know, when we talk about canons in the past, you talk about Shalimar and, Guerlain Vetiver, or like, like what, like the, Bois de Elis, or, Chanel No. 5, like these. And what's funny about Aventus, Green Irish Tweed, Millesime Imperial, these are all for men. It's almost like a luxury. It's almost like a new it's almost like the equivalent of like a sort of like I don't know what the word, like hot, like kind of like haute couture version of like these sort of fragrances for like luxury men are, but Creed sort of has defined this genre, I guess. I think it's still kind of going on a bit, like it's still a big strain in that kind of culture, with like, I don't know. Anyways, but yeah, so I wouldn't dismiss the fragrances themselves. I mean, because Pierre Bourdon is a really great perfumer, and I do think that stuff is actually, it's like, it's being discussed because it was such a big part of, like it's important to people. That's why like it's worth writing a book about it, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't dismiss all the fragrances just because like
absolutely not,
like lying about the history.
And there's a lot of legendary discontinued fragrances from Creed, because Creed, early on, at least until, the early 2010s with the release of Aventus, Creed was sort of in a similar vein to Penhaligon's and Floris. They had these very traditional, I don't know if old world is the right way to describe it, but very traditional kind of fragrances that explored concepts that weren't really necessarily the most modern, but they were really esteemed for that. So they did have some great compositions, like the
Portugal, for example, is an amazing. It's like it's one of the best of its kind.
Acier Aluminium.
Yeah. Like, I was gonna say that even Green Irish Tweed, is I guess the sort of predecessor to a Cool Water, but smells so good. Green Irish Tweed. I was gonna say though that and even in the book, that the book we're talking about, the Ghost Perfumer, he describes the process of Pierre Bourdon giving the formula to Creed, and then he spends a lot of money on the ingredients to make it really light up. So even if like, it is, a scam or something, he is actually like, he is like spending more on these fragrances than people are willing to do in like a designer scent typically, and they are taking maybe like a formula that, could be like a mall scent, but is actually like amplified to be this sort of like really vibrant thing, with these nice ingredients. So
I don't know. What was I going to say? Oh, yes. Don't forget to hit the like. We're at 35 likes. I was hoping by the end of the stream that we would hit 40.
Oh, and also not to mention that we're talking about it because Bowie wore Silver Mountain Water. Bowie was a niche fragrance collector back when Creed was a niche fragrance house, and, wore Silver Mountain Water, so.
Also, for those who are new to the channel and would like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee. Each coffee is $5. If you do happen to purchase 6 coffees, you'll get a sample pack from yours truly. So I have scores and scores of samples, boxes of samples, plenty to go around. And you can get a sample pack from me. For 12 coffees, you can get a 4 full bottle grab bag. That is 4 full bottles. You can't choose them. This is a mystery grab bag, but you can get 4 full bottles plus the sample pack if you purchase 12 coffees. So if you just go to the link that is pinned in the chat, buymeacoffee.com/Joseph Kolb P. So just wanted to put that out there. Let's try to aim for 40. We're going to stay on for a little bit longer so we could at least reach that goal. We have a few more things in the chat. I think yes, please. Oh, Wild Fern. I actually have another one from Trumper here. That was on my side, by my side, Eucharist.
Yeah, it's really cool. Really cool. Yeah. Really mossy, right?
Yeah, that one's really mossy as well. Wild Fern actually is the closest for something still in production that you can get to the original Fougère Royale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like because there's a Fougère Royale out now that smells quite good. I mean, but it's almost like smells like in the universe of like like a fragrance like Zeno or something, But but it's great. It's really, really good. But then this is really like the, you know, then there was another one that's now out of print called English Fern by Penhaligon, but that's again gone. So this is it. If you really want to smell the original Fougere Royale kind of vibe, wild fern, this is like not an expensive fragrance. And this really, like, this is an interesting thing to smell because it's like, I mean, like,
it's all in the so we're gonna get into the nerd stuff. Amyl salicylate. Amyl salicylate was a big part of the classic Fougere. So everybody talks about the geranium and the lavender and the oak moss and the tonka slash
you can smell
coumarin.
those things in here, you know, but
You can smell all of them, but that amyl salicylate that just blends everything together is that telltale. It almost smells like the smell of like wildflowers that have taken over a lawn, or like clovers, or even like azaleas. It's very distinct.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I was really surprised at how this was not especially fresh, like in the way that I thought it would be. I mean, it's fresh, but it's like, I mean, it even has a kind of a mintiness to it, but maybe that's like kind of the geranium, but it has a I don't know. It's like it has this more like rugged, woodsy vibe. Like it really smells more like, it really has that. And I know that the original idea for Fougere was to sort of make like a fern kind of textured vibe, you know, and it has that kind of like leafiness to it. It's not it doesn't, you know, it's, you know, this isn't like whatever it became, you know, with Paco Rabanne and you know, whatever eventually, like Irish Spring soap or whatever, you know, like that green gassy like freshness, that sort of gassy element of Fougeres that sort of like fills up like kind of like they're kind of like green ghosts that are like kind of fresh. This isn't really like that, you know. It's like
it predates that, because that was really starting to.
It's more earthy. It's more there, you know?
Yeah. The Irish Spring was sort of around, I think the Irish Spring was released to the market in 1970. So a lot had happened since then to reimagine the Fougere.
Yeah.
But I love that one. Wild Fern, English Fern. They're similar, but of course, because I love that whole.
I'd love to get English Fern. I should have. Yeah. I used to see it in England when I would, you know, when I was go there to visit my you know, my family, but yeah, it's gone from the shops now. Yeah,
there might be another bottle, Adam, that's sold at a tobacco shop in Harvard Square. Just message me. Maybe I can arrange something. Maybe I can buy it for you.
Nice.
Don't nobody else listen to me. I'm getting a little sassy here. Nobody else should ask me. I'm not going to do that because I don't even think there's very many left. So I'm just and maybe I should have said that privately, but I think they still have.
Yeah, you know. So we didn't talk about Chypras particularly.
We don't have to stop at 2 hours. We can chat for a bit more.
My kids are going to come home from camp any minute.
Okay. Let's just do a couple minutes of that, and then we'll go back. I want to go backstage with you too, and just chat a little bit before you absolutely have to go. But just to tell us a little bit here.
This is Rozha Diaghilev, which I talk about in the book. But this is a great Diaghilev is so good, you know. By the way, isn't Eucharist like sort of like a James Bond or something? Isn't it associated with something like that, like or like Ian Fleming or something? Or
yeah, I think it was mentioned in
I
one
feel
of
like it has some kind of association with like Bond.
Yeah. And like one of the maybe it was an Octopussy, the novel version, or I don't think it was mentioned in the movie. Obviously, they wouldn't. But yeah, because I think Eucharist. How long has Eucharist been around? I don't know. Maybe it was an earlier one, but I do recall reading that.
It's actually been around a really long time, so it's. I feel like it's not like like I mean, it might not be fake news.
But
okay, so this is a great Chypra, Diaghilev. I mean, it's really expensive, so I have this like little thing of it. But I really feel like this does what like a modern, or like, you know, I feel like it's sort of really like, it's kind of like, it's sort of like an update of like Rochas Femme or like a classic Chypra like that, you know. But these Chypras are kind of like, we've been talking about Fougeres, which I was sort of saying are gassy and like, you know, like sort of like airy, and they're like, you know, they're breezy and they're like, you know, fresh. These Chypras are like filling up like your whole nose with like a lot of dense material. Like they're kind of like they're everything, you know, instead of like the world being a gas, like they're like the world being like compressed into like a haggis, you know. I feel
Yes.
like the sheepers are like a haggis of like a whole, you know, farm, and they're like,
Stuffed to the gills, as they say.
yeah. So I really like these scents are really interesting. You know, I really feel like I think of that. Actually, this one is this Rochas Femme one is a good one to start with because it's not that expensive, you know, to get. This one, Rochas Femme, you know, this is like it's pretty inexpensive and it still smells really good. And I feel like this is a really interesting, to me, this is like what I love, fragrances that take me back to the golden age of like some imagine hypnotic magic that, like, you know, this is what the past used to smell like,
Right,
you know,
right.
and like this is like that. It feels like, you know, like a Henry James novel or something, you know, like, you know, I don't know. Like, I feel like if you really want a fragrance that just like takes you back, I feel like this Rochas Femme is like a meaningful scent.
I love all the versions of that. I'm not partial to, you know, the Rudnitska original one or the reformed. All of them are wonderful.
Yeah. And as well as we talk about the Misty or Original and stuff, these are all like, I mean, these are like some of the most, you know, they just have the most like, it's like reading the Brothers Karamazov or something. It's like reading the full, you know, the full epic novel. Like these Chypras like are, you know, and I feel because the accord of a Chypra is like typically like a labdanum and oak moss, and
Those
then
form the crux.
bergamot or some kind of citrus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can add a lot of things to it, but I feel like the amber actually like is sort of like the very human soul aspect to it, you know, and the oak moss is like very much like the earth, and then like the bergamot is like the sun. So I feel like you have sort of like the landscape, you know. It's like a Van Gogh painting of you know, of like a French countryside. You know, you have like the sun and people and their souls and the earth. Like,
and then you know, I feel like often I describe Chypras of having like a chiaroscuro, like sort of like shade and light. Yeah.
Okay.
Adam, we just have a couple more questions here. The questions are now closed because we're going to be signing off soon, but we just have 2 more questions. Was Bowie's love for fragrance mentioned in any of the documentaries after his death?
I don't know, man. I mean, I think now that I'm done looking or making this book, I'm hoping that maybe like some other people will just do some work on this subject. And please just keep me updated if you find out any more information on what Bowie wore. Oh, actually, you know, there was a lady at the fragrance shop in New York. She told me that Bowie wore a fragrance because he used to, you know, before near the end of his life, he performed at La Mama Theater in the East Village, and it's right across from the fragrance shop. So he would buy a fragrance by I think it's called Eaton. It's by it's like a shaving fragrance, but it smells a lot like Eau Sauvage. It's by I don't know, it's by a British shaving company. I think the fragrance is called Eaton, like after the school.
I'm trying to remember the name. I'm familiar with that too, but I can't remember the name of the house.
Yeah, but so you get like little leads of what Bowie wore, but yeah, like yeah, I don't know, like I you know, I when I was in bookshops and a new Bowie biography comes out, I'll flip through the index to see if I can find Perfume or anything like that, but they never seem to mention it. You know, I think the best resource that anyone can really get is to look. Well, I guess now at this point, this book, you know, this is a pretty good resource about what Bowie wore. But the Katie Puckrick message board, I think is still up. If you find like what did Bowie wear, and it's just people chiming in. Yes,
thank you, Will.
Taylor of Old Bond Street.
I have the sandalwood. I love the sandalwood.
Yeah, that's great. The sandalwood is great. Yeah. And the trumpet sandalwood is good. All these kind of old.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we have a last question here.
Yeah.
And what would you think a great frag head band name would be?
It has to be something that only like frag heads know about.
Right.
Like
the rose ketones. I don't know. I think of like the different like materials, which is a little too nerdy.
Yeah, like I don't. Oh wow. You got to give me a second on that.
But you would spell rose ketones like KEY-tone.
Ketones. That's really good though. That is really good. The ketones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say though that Bowie. I don't know. What were you talking about?
Oh, a good name for a fraghead band.
Yeah, no. Other than that, there's something else about the Katie Puckrick message board. Oh yeah, the Katie Puckrick. Yeah, that her I think her website's still up, and it's really cool.
Yeah,
really cool to go through and see all the all the comments people left about what Bowie wore, and you can really like. And as I said, some people seem like they kind of have some inside information, and some people don't. But I'm
determined. I'm determined to get her back into fragrance content and just have her as a guest here. But I don't know if I can convince her. She's only dabbling here. She actually uploaded a video for the first time in, I don't know, a decade on her channel.
Really?
But it was the Penhaligon's review that she did of Blenheim Bouquet that she did for Penhaligon's, and everybody was losing it because they're like, you're back, you're going to be doing videos again. And I'm like, I don't know. I think she just wanted to share that on the channel, but you never know. I would love to have her here though, if she was willing, but she's a busy lady.
I'm excited. I'm going to go to London in a few weeks, and I was excited to go. I wanted to smell those Grossmith fragrances.
Yes, I have. What is the one that I have? And I'm like blanking out on what I have. It's like I don't even remember the name of it. That's when you know you have too many. I don't have Hasan Nohana, and I don't have Shell El Nassim. I have the third one from that trio, and drawing a blank, even though I own it. Did a whole review of it.
Something Fool.
Fulnana, thank you. I actually have a bottle of. I invested money in a bottle of it, and the name just. It was my favorite out of the three, and I treated myself to it.
Yeah, so I don't know, but but I kind of feel like with the British fragrances, it's kind of funny how I feel like they're sort of like you have this sort of, like on the Penhaligon's side, you have these sort of green, like kind of herbaceous, like kind of like like there's sort of like these sort of citrus green, like sort of traditional kind of cologne waters, but there's sort of these kind of like, I don't know, like a little bit gray and like kind of, I feel like they're almost like pheasant hunting fragrances, like, and I feel like in a way Ralph Lauren was parroting that when he did the original Polo, or Carlos Benheim or whoever did.
Yeah, definitely.
It's almost like a parody of the sort of British green shaving fragrance. And then I feel like the other extreme is like the powdery English rose, where it's like, like like I don't know why there's sort of like this idea that there's this English rose and then there's some powder. Like I feel like Florist number 89 uses that as well. But I feel like in a way, like once you kind of like put dandies in the mix, then like the men can be the English rose easily. So it's kind of like it's
Adam, did you see that Penhaligon's just released a fragrance called Dandy or The Dandy?
No, I didn't know.
I don't have high hopes for it, the cynic that I am, because it's supposed to be a boozy fragrance.
Oh man.
And I'm very picky about boozy fragrances to begin with.
Okay.
I want to sample it, but I have this sinking feeling that it is like algorithm ready. It is ready for like TikTok. Even though it's the dandy, and who's talking about the dandies on TikTok? You'd have to. You'd have to like the far corner of some.
There's not a prevalence of British dandies.
Right. I mean, it's probably there, but it's. I don't know. I just don't. I have to just try it. I got to give it a chance. But when I just end up thinking of English Fern, that's the true dandy to me.
Oh, right.
So for them to do the dandy, that is high expectations being set for me at least. But I'd like to try it. Yeah. I just saw it today.
Kind of interesting that I think I talked about in the book, but it's like that one is very rosy and has this. Apparently, Ozzy Osbourne wears it.
Which one is that?
Number 88 by.
Number 89 from.
No.
It's
like, no.
Oh no! I know it. Check and speak. Check and speak number. Oh my God! What is wrong with me?
Adams kind of fragrance.
fucking love that.
Yeah,
It is what that's. I'm so fried. I can't believe I'm not remembering like Full Nana and Number 88. Like Number 88 is one of my favorite fragrances.
Yeah, it's like a real Tim Burton fragrance. Like I don't know how they.
It is
like
true.
Because when you kind of go into the shop, it's like the main thing. You're like, oh, you guys like have this kind of creepy like rose fragrances. Like it's almost like a Uncle Fester.
Bilbo Fragrance, I think, is referring to the dandy, because when you call it the dandy, you're setting yourself up for failure, because everybody's got,
Yeah, so lame. Whatever. But Florist is like, I don't think they're doing something weird. But actually, we were talking about this thing with the directions of companies. Like I feel like Chanel seems to have decided like that they will not do an oud.
Right.
Like they won't do one. Right. Like every other company has done one.
We need 4 more likes. We'll stay on. That will probably discourage people to like, because they'll want us to stay on longer. But I want to have 40 likes before we sign off. We need 4 more.
All right, do them, guys, because I gotta go.
30. We gotta do this soon. Let's try to.
And but it's been fun to talk fragrances with you all. I mean, I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know.
Well, I think this is what we'll do then. We'll sign off so I can chat backstage with you a little bit, folks. Thank you so much to tuning in with us, Adam. Thank you for joining me in this just a really thrilling conversation about scent. And folks, please remember to visit his site. I love his music, and I also thoroughly enjoy this Adam Green's Fragrance Adventure. The PDF link is right in the description. Download it, have a blast with it. It's playful, it's irreverent, and most of all, it's free. You don't have to pay for it. So please check that out. Adam, stick around. We're going to be backstage. And for everybody out there, I will see you in September. I'll see you in September. All right, take care, everyone. See you soon. All right. Stick around, Adam.